Okay, hi everybody. I believe Diane, Yehudit, Bracha, Michelle, Chani. Hello. So here we have our chart of the portions of the Parshas in the Torah. Here's Chumash Bereshis and Chumash Shemais. So this week we're reading Vayakhel and Pekudei, which are the last two portions in Chumash Shemais, in the book of Exodus. So sometimes you have the portions combined, which is tied to how it lays out, because we have to finish the entirety of the Chumash throughout the year. So when it's a leap year, then many of the portions will be separated because we have an extra month. But this year is not a leap year, and therefore we're going to sometimes combine. There's certain portions that are combined, like this week Vayakhel and Pekudei. So I will mention, not all of you have Chumash, and some of you do. On Shabbos, when there are aliyahs, people called up to the Torah, on Shabbos, there's 7 people called up, plus one more for the Haftorah. So what happens is, when you have two portions combined, you don't call up 14. You still call up 7, but we elonginate the aliyahs. So I'll just quickly do that. If you have the Art School Chumash in front of you, I'll show you the pages. Take a look at Vayakhel, begins on page 516. Oh, I have the handouts. All right. Everyone have Vayakhel on page 516 if you have an art scroll? What happened? What's wrong? What's wrong? What happened?
516, you said?
516. So this is the beginning of Vayakhel, and turn to page 518, and you look in the margin on the side. It says Sheni. On the right side, it says Sheni. Everyone see that? That's normally where the second person is called up to the Torah on Shabbos. So if Vayakhel will be by itself, does everyone have what I'm talking about? That's where this, what?
I'm on 518.
You see in the margin on the right side is a tiny word, Shani. That means the second aliyah, second person is called up. Everyone got it? Now turn to page 520 and look at the top on the right margin, and you'll see it says Shalishi, and then in the brackets, again 520 on the top, in the brackets it says Shalishi in letters by itself on the margin on the right, and then in the brackets it says Sheni. Everyone see that? Which means Vayakhel is read by itself. That's the third aliyah. When it's read together with Pekudei, that's where the Sheni is. That's where the second aliyah is.
I don't really understand what you've said.
We have 7 people plus 1 that we call up on Shabbos. So what do we do when there's a combination? Do we call up 14 people because we're reading 2 portions together?
Oh, this is 2 portions. Is that?
This is both. Vayakhel is sometimes read independently and sometimes it's not. So when it's read by itself, then we stop for the second person on the middle of page 518 where it says Sheni.
But what is it read with?
It's read with a Torah scroll. I'm not sure what it read
No,
with.
I'm saying-
With bagels and cream cheese. I don't know what you mean.
So you're saying this Parsha is read in combination with another Parsha?
With the next portion,
Oh.
Vayakhel and Pekudei. Right. So we're going to actually take out a second Sefer Torah scroll as well. That's a separate story. We'll talk about that in a minute. But for now, because we're combining Vayakhel and Pekudei, so when Vayakhel is by itself, Sheni, the second aliyah, is on page 518. When it's not by itself, when it's together with the next portion, Pekudei, then the first break comes on the top of page 520.
So this is the only Parsha that gets combined.
No, there are some other ones we'll have as
Yeah,
we.
because this is a catch-up year.
It's not a catch up, it's just the way it works out. We have to sometimes combine portions.
Oh, because otherwise we'll wind up with too many at the end of the year.
Correct. That's right. Okay. So then on the bottom of 520, you see Revi'i. which means the fourth in the margin Ravi, the fourth aliyah. That would be if Vayakhel is by itself. Then page 522, we have Kamishi in the margin on the right, which indicates it's the fifth aliyah when Vayakhel is read by itself. Then on 524, toward the bottom on the margin, it says Shishi. That's the sixth aliyah when it's read by itself, but when it's combined, in the brackets, it says Shalishi. Because what happens is, I don't want you to be in synagogue and he was past Shani, and you go, stop, you went too far. No, he's going to keep on going to the next break. Got it?
So it'll be a very long service.
It'll be longer services, depending on the rabbi's speech, but yes, it'll be longer services because we are including both portions together. So there you see on the bottom 524, in the margin is Shishi, the sixth aliyah, but when it's read together, it's only Shalishi, the third aliyah. On page 526 is in the margin, it's Shavi'i, the seventh aliyah, when Vayakhel is read by itself. But when it's combined, that's Ravi'i. And Ravi'i is going to be the bridge between the two portions. We're going to continue going through Vayakhel, through the end of Vayakhel, straight into the next portion, Pekudei, all the way till page 532. We add an extra month, yes. And then many times a lot of the portions are separated. Okay, so on 532, you have Sheni and Chamishi. Why Sheni? Huh? It's the second aliyah just for Pekudei, if Pekudei was by itself. But then it's Chamishi, it's the fifth aliyah when it's together. Phyllis, you with us?
Yes.
Okay. If anyone's not understanding, please say so. 534, we have Shalishi, Shishi. We have the third aliyah for Pekudei by itself, Shishi when it's combined with Vayakhel. Then you see Ravi on the bottom there for when it's by itself. 536, we have Kamishi. 536, margin on the right. Kamishi, fifth aliyah when it's by itself, and Shavi'i, the seventh aliyah, when it's combined. And we're going to keep on going past the Shishi and the Shvi that you have on 538, all the way to the end. Okay. Now, normally,
536 at the bottom.
on 536 on the bottom, yes.
How do you say that?
Where?
The yud and the out.
That's just Yiraut. That's verse 11. That's it. But I'm looking at the margins on the middle where it says Chamishi Shavi'i. That's what I'm focused on. Chamishi is the fifth aliyah, Shvi is the seventh. Now, normally, when we have the seventh aliyah, we finish the portion with that. And then, because the person is being called up to read the maftir, that's something from the book of prophets, we give him part of the portion and we do the maftir. We give him a little piece in that week's portion. So it's repeating what we read in the Shvi'i, a little part of what we read already. But when we have an extra reading like this coming week, and also this past week was Parshat Parsha, this coming week is Parshat Chodesh. So when we have it together, when we have an extra reading, we take out actually a separate Torah scroll if we have one, so you don't have to save time rolling it to the right place. Then the extra reading is not going to be a repeat of the end of the portion, but rather we read it from someplace else. So we'll have 7 aliyahs from Vayakhel and Pekudei, another maftir from Parshat Chodesh, and then we'll read the Haftorah related to Parshat Chodesh. Does everyone understand what I just said? Is this clear? Yeah, good. Those of you on Zoom, you got it? Okay. So let me give out the Parsha facts. And again, those of you who don't, who are on Zoom, and you can get it online when we send out the recording of the Parsha, or you can go to the office and Cheryl will have to send it. So on the Parsha facts, it says on the first page, in the first Torah scroll, this week's portion is Vayakhel, translation, and he assembled. this year combined with next portion. So it's Shemai's Exodus, chapter 35, verse 1, chapter 38, verse 40, pages 516, 529, commandments, one negative commandment. And the topics are the Shabbos contributions, craftsmen, the construction of the Mishkan Tabernacle. And if you look at the next page, it'll tell you Parsha facts, Torah scroll, this week's portion Pekudei, which means reckoning, and no commandments in it. And then in the second Torah scroll on the bottom, one person called up for special maftir for HaChodesh. Okay, so that's that. So let's take a look a little bit about Vayakhel-Pekudei. Parshas Truma and Tetzaveh, which unfortunately, because of my brother's illness and passing, we didn't do together. Pekudei, Truma and Tetzaveh that we missed together. Truma deals with the donations that people gave for the theoretical aspect of building a tabernacle, a mobile temple for the Jewish people in the desert. And in it, it had the various vessels that existed in the Mishkan. We're not going to go through what they all are, but if you'd like to see an artist's rendition of some of them, you can see them on page 447. Is the Aron, the Ark. If you have the article Chumash, turn to 447, which is the Ark. Some of you, unfortunately, may be only familiar with the Ark from the first Raiders movie, the Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was referring to this Ark, actually. Okay, so it was a real thing, not the movie, but the Ark was a real thing. The movie wasn't, but all right.
Actually, I think Indiana Jones is based on a real person.
I'm sorry?
I think Indiana Jones is based on a real person.
Yes, there is a fellow. No, actually, interesting. I forgot his first name. Would it be right? Vidal Jones, I think, was his name. He was an explorer, and what he became was a righteous non-Jew. He became a Ger Tzedek. He didn't convert, but he became a Noachite because he felt that his research would be more accepted that way. But a lot of his kids converted. Yeah, that's what I heard. I don't know this is a fact. That's what I heard. He discovered he used the Torah to find, archaeological digs, and he found some interesting things. He thinks he found the Ketores, the incense that they used. He found some interesting things.
This whole story is fascinating.
Yeah, you read about it somewhere?
Yeah. I was reading about it. So I was obsessed with Indiana Jones, and then I realized, wow, it's actually based on a real.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was a swashbuckling, yes, as the movie portrays, I'm sure. But in any event, so there you see the Aron, the Ark. On page 449, you have the Shulchan, the table. On 451, you have the menorah. With how many lights? Being good, you got that was a true good trivia. Normally everyone says 8 because it's the Chanukah, but it's not. It's 7. All right, 451. All right, that's the menorah.
I have a question. Would
Yeah.
you ever put it out to put the menorah on the State of Israel flag instead of the Star of David? Was there?
I have no idea. It is a menorah is used sometimes as a symbol of the Star of David, but as a symbol of the state. But no, the Star of David, the Star of David. All right. On 457, we have the boards for the walls. On 461, we have the altar that was outside that was used for the sacrifices. Gesundheit. On 463, we have a layout of the Mishkan. And on 467, we have the garments of the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, including 469 and 470 and 472, 473. Again, we're giving artist renditions. And we're not going through all of this, but I'm just giving you a sense of what. And 482, we have the other altar, the golden one for the incense. Okay, which brings us to Vayakhel. And Vayakhel begins with Moshe gathering the Jewish people and telling them about Shabbos. On the 6 days work may be done, but the 7th day shall be holy to you, a day of complete rest for Hashem. Whoever does work on it shall be put to death. You shall not kindle the fire in any of your dwellings on the Shabbos. Okay, so where is Shabbos coming in here? Well, Shabbos is coming in here for several reasons. First of all, we learned the laws of Shabbos from what was used during the construction of the temple. There's a wonderful book. It looks like a kid's book. It's called The 39 Malachos of Shabbos. And it's drawings, beautiful drawings about the laws of Shabbos. And in it, it'll show what ancient times they did during the temple and then modern applications for it. So it's a beautiful book. We do have it here in the library. If I have a chance, I'll run in and get it for you. But it's a beautiful, beautiful book where you can learn the basics of the laws of Shabbos based upon the 39 malachos, the 39 major categories of labor. So I'm using terms that you may not be familiar with. There's something called an av malacha, a father malacha, and a tolda, a child work. What it means is, let me give you an example. And I'm going to actually, on the handouts that I gave you, take a look at the last page. So here are practical examples of the malachas, of the 39 malachas. Does everyone have this? Again, I'm sorry you don't have it here, but you can get a copy of it from. So one is plowing, two is sowing or planting, reaping, mimer, dash, threshing. So first of all, you're going to get very excited when you see the 39 different things that we don't do on Shabbos, because you say, oh, I don't do any of this stuff. I'm not a farmer. Not so fast. Not so fast. Here's an example. Let me give you an example. Look at 23, the top on the right side. Topher is sewing. Okay, so sewing, I don't sew. I give it to my tailor. Not so simple. Why is it not so simple? Because the major category is sewing, but the child of that would be gluing or pasting papers together, because it's taking the concept. What's the idea of sewing? Sewing is taking two separate things and putting them together. So when I paste it or glue it or tape it, that's the same concept, just not the exact way they did in the temple, but it's a child of it. Does anyone understand what I just said? Okay, so I want to do something very interesting with you for a moment, and I'm going to show you these 39 malachas are actually what a person needs to survive. 1 through 11 is making bread or food. Okay, baking bread. 12 through 24 is clothing. 25 through 27 is shelter. 28 through 36 is writing the Torah. 37 and 38 are fire, and 39 is commerce. I'll do it again one more time and explain what we're doing here. So of the 39 major categories of labor, 1 is plowing, 11 is baking. So that's the process going from the beginning to end. That's the concept of making bread or food. 12 through 24 is shearing wool all the way through sewing and ripping. So that's the concept of clothing. 25 through 27 is shelter. It's building, breaking down, and finishing off something. 28 through 36 is capturing an animal and slaughtering it and skinning it, tanning it, et cetera, et cetera. All these are writing a Torah scroll. Putting on a fire, putting it out, that's fire. That's going to be obviously for heat and for being able to cook. And 29 is commerce, taking things from one place to another. So does everyone understand here? So there's a deeper aspect going on here that is telling us man needs to be dependent on God. And these essential things that might be essential for life are suspended on Shabbos. Yeah.
Why do you narrow the definition on the writing to Torah scrolls? Why doesn't it include?
No. I'm glad you asked the question. We are prohibited from writing anything on Shabbos. But I'm just saying the concepts are based upon what a person would need to survive. So the prohibition of building is building a house.
Oh, you need the Torah to survive, but you don't need a secular book of laws to survive.
Right. No. So right. What I'm saying is I'm taking. These are literally the 39 categories of labor that are prohibited, no matter what you're writing, no matter what you're doing.
Right.
Okay. Except for saving a life, all these things are prohibited.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm taking the concepts and saying what we're doing here is showing how the 39 categories of labor fit into what we would need to survive as a person.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's why, so the reason you're targeting the Torah writing is because the other writing isn't necessary for survival, but
Right. Correct. That's right. But all of them are prohibited.
Right, that I get.
Yeah. All right. So this is just a very fascinating thing that I learned a long time ago and I wanted to share with you. All right. So Shabbos is very important, and so one reason why it's here is to teach us. We learn what's prohibited based upon what was done to build the temple. That's what we learned what we cannot do on Shabbos. So far, so good. Secondly, it also teaches us the priority that even though the building of the Mishkan is so important, we don't do it on Shabbos. So I had someone years ago ask me a question, Rabbi, what's better, that I should drive to shul or stay home? So I said, it's a setup question. Could you make it sound like there are only two options? There's a third option, move to be near a shul. Then you don't have to drive. But if I don't drive, then I can't be there. I don't have the spirituality. If I drive, then at least I'm getting the spirituality. It says, no, the Torah says, you have to have better priorities and live near a shul. Someone said very powerfully, more than the Jewish people have kept Shabbos, Shabbos has kept the Jewish people. I'll repeat that. More than the Jewish people have kept Shabbos, Shabbos has kept the Jewish people. And these 39 malachas, these 39 categories of labor helps create an unbelievable atmosphere. There was an article I read many years ago from a conservative rabbi that talked about that we have to take that it was like one of the heads of the conservative movement writing to his people, we have to take Shabbos more seriously. And it was like 3/4 of the article was like, could have been written by an Orthodox rabbi. I was like, whoa. And then he says, but we don't mean like the Orthodox that they don't do any of the work and they don't. And I was like so disappointed because like, you don't understand. I'll pick an example. You're going out with your spouse or with a date, and it wanted to be a romantic evening out at a nice kosher restaurant. Now, it's not going to be the same if it's a deli. there's a certain ambiance that's created in the nice atmosphere. There's candlelight, maybe there's soft music, maybe it's nicer. It's a nicer place. You create the atmosphere of Shabbos. You can't have Shabbos without the 39 halachos. And today, I don't have to do much evidence. People on cell phones, people getting emails, people getting phone calls. It's nonstop. If you don't shut it off, you're at work. I hear this complaint from people all the time. It used to be I work 9 to 5. Now I work 24/7 because I'm constantly getting emails and phone calls. Yeah.
I go to conservative shul.
Uh-huh.
I get in this argument with them all the time because they videotape the service, and I told them it's not a good thing.
Look,
I don't know how to convince them.
you're not going to convince them because they don't understand why they shouldn't. A lot of the people don't know better. Which is, we're going to get to an interesting article. I'm going to read to you a little about it. Rabbi Emmanuel Feldman wrote something very powerful.
But we're like losing confidence, and it's like I feel like it's tied to like this type of.
I'm going to read you the article, which will be helpful. But the idea is understanding. So interesting. I shared this frustration that I had with, and in the article he writes, just like we had Shabbos in the Reform sleepaway camps, that was, and I had some people at my table, my Shabbos table, said I went to one of those camps. And they used to keep certain things of Shabbos. We couldn't turn on the lights. I remember what somebody said, and that created that atmosphere. Even in the conservative camp many years ago was that way. So it's just, you have to understand that I spoke about this on Shabbos, that it's not coincidental that the word spiritual has the word ritual in it. Those are not disconnected. They are actually connected. The rituals help create an atmosphere for spirituality. So that's just an important idea. Unplugging and not making. I think a rabbi was once asked, "What's the Jewish view of not making pollution in the world?" So we're very strong for it. Once every 7 days, we don't drive our cars. So it's, you can look at it from that point. Not smoking. There's just. As Rabbi Gifter put it, it's like an island of tranquility in the sea of tumult and confusion. And that Shabbos is just such an important part. And Shabbos acknowledges Hashem as our God, and he's in charge and he's a creator. And we take a step back. There's a beautiful example from the Dugna Magid about this fellow who's schlepping these heavy suitcases, on the road, and a man's driving by with his wagon and says, "Hey, where are you going?" He says, "I'm going to the city up ahead." "So am I. Come on into my wagon." "Oh, thank you so much." He gives him a lift. And the guy's sitting there, huffing and puffing, holding his packages. Says, "Why are you holding your packages? Look, you're nice enough to pick me up. I don't want my packages to be a burden. It's in the wagon. It's all the same. Put it down." And the Dumraga says, Hashem provides for us all week. I don't have to work on Shabbos. Let the packages go. He's carrying us all week anyway. Might as well let the packages go. He'll take it. If he takes care of us 6 days a week, he'll take care of us on the 7th as well. So some of you may have known about this story. The Triangle Shirtwaist Company. Anyone hear about this?
Yeah.
No.
It's a very famous story.
Fire.
I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I did.
Yes, that is correct. There was a fire. There was a fire in this famous factory in New York that so there was this woman who, before the fire, came to America, needed a job, and she heard that there were many Jewish girls that found a job in this place. And she went to the place, and they said, "Yes, we'll hire you. What are the hours? You got to come in on Shabbos." And as tempting as it was, because she needed the job desperately, she said, "I'm not going to work on Shabbos." And it was Parshat Vayakhel, where it says, "Don't kindle a fire in your house." There was a fire in this place, and because of lack of regulations, the doors were blocked. And unfortunately, 146 people died, most of them young women that were working in the factory because they couldn't get out. And this young woman didn't take the job, and she lived to tell the story. And Baruch Hashem has children and grandchildren that are keeping Torah mitzvahs because she stuck to her guns, as challenging as it was, and didn't take the job. And it's like, and it was scary because that week was Parshat Vayakhel, where it says keep Shabbos and don't kindle fire in your home. And unfortunately, many people lost their lives then. I'm sorry.
What year?
Let me see if I have it here. 1911. It's March 25th, 1911. There was a lot of congested aisles, locked doors. It set the pattern. It's a famous story because strict industrial safety code. That's when they had to put in some rules because people, the owners were not being careful about it.
I also
All right.
think some of the girls were very young too, working there.
I don't think that's the relevant issue. That could be too, but because no one could get out. That it wasn't the age that was the problem. It was they didn't have a way of getting out. All right. All right. So what happens in Parshat Vayakhel, mostly, and a little Pekudei, is that it repeats the story of the building of the Mishkan. Why is it important to repeat it again? Well, number one, the Torah feeds our soul even if we don't think it's relevant. Number two, there's some powerful lessons that we can learn from it. And for example, it's not enough to plan about doing the right thing. It has to go into fruition. So Parshat Vayakhel is the action that they actually made this Mishkan. Interestingly enough, the Jewish people gave enough for all the needs of the Mishkan. Their donations were enough for all the needs of the Mishkan. And Moshe he didn't tell them, stop bringing. He said, stop working. Why didn't he say stop bringing? Because he didn't want people who made things to feel badly. He said, stop working from now on. Whoever did it, bring it. And there was a beautiful pattern of donations that were given. And Moshe was sensitive to the people who were middle of working on stuff, not to stop, not to make them feel badly. There's a beautiful story about Rabbi Spector, that someone came to him telling him some good news. Another person came a few minutes later, oh, Rabbi, you have to hear what happened. And he said, oh, thank you so much. And each time another person kept on coming and telling him. And he said, oh, wow, thank you very much. Someone asked him, the first guy told you the news. Why are you making believe like you never heard it? Because the person who's coming to tell me wants to make me feel good. I don't want to say, no, I know already. I don't want to make him feel badly. So I'll acknowledge each person as if they're the first one telling me the news. Just a sweet thing that we can learn from.
I guess that works for jokes too, when somebody tells you a joke at a party.
Only if it's a good one. No. Yes, you can do. Yes, if you can fake it, yes, that's good. And by the way, as a side, this teaches us a very important thing about the concept of giving. The values of and politics of charity are pretty interesting. The data seems to show that the divide between American givers and non-givers is not based upon income, but rather the charity gap is driven not by economics, but by values. The Jerusalem Post columnist Jonathan Rosenblum wrote, Orthodox Jews are 50% more likely to volunteer their time, while 14% of Orthodox Jews contribute more than $5,000 to Jewish charity, and only 2.8% of the conservatives and 1% of the Reform do so, and the Orthodox do so despite carrying tuition bills that sometimes are in excess of $50,000 a year.
What was that?
It was saying that 14% of Orthodox Jews contribute more than $5,000 to the Jewish charity, only 2.8% are conservative and 1% of the Reform. And that's despite Orthodox people having more expenses because of kosher food and sending the kids to yeshiva, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Now,
Please,
make it comment.
Phyllis, yeah.
There's only because they're drive this project renewal, which is not just donating money, it's donating a kidney.
Kidneys,
There
yes.
is a very high percentage of Orthodox Jews that donate kidneys to people they don't know.
That's true. That is true.
Right, he did, and
Yeah.
they're doing something this weekend to
Mhm.
create awareness and get tests.
Yeah. Very special, very special.
That's an interesting statistic because
Yeah. Okay. The Talmud teaches us that the attributes of the Jewish people ideally should be they should be merciful, and they should be bashful and do acts of loving kindness. Now, what's interesting to note also is that the women who did not give for the golden calf gave for the Mishkan. And that's significant that the women got it right. And that's an important idea, knowing what to give for. There was a rabbi named Rabbi Yitzchak who was the owner of a beautiful, beautiful gem. And he heard that the ruler heard about its existence and he wanted to buy from him and pay him a lot of money. And he would be set for life. But then he realized he could do great things with the money. So what does His Highness want this gem for? Oh, he wants it as the centerpiece of the eye of his idol. And he said, I'm sorry, I can't let you buy for that. And he told the messengers to leave. So they came up with a new idea. And they told them that there's a Jewish family being held captive on a boat nearby. They were released only if Rabbi Yitzchak appeared with his gem and redeemed them with it. So he came, and when he found out, though, he said that it was really, there's no Jewish family here, it was all a trick. We intend to hold you captive until you sell us the gem. We'll make matters easier and do it. And what he did was he ran to the side and threw the gem away into the water. Says, I'm not going to do it for that. I'd rather lose all my riches than have it used for the wrong purposes. They let him go, and a heavenly voice declared that you threw away your fortune for the sake of Hashem. No, you'll be repaid with a son whose knowledge will be more valuable than all the Jews of the world. And the son was Rashi, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki. Rashi stands for Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, Rabbi Shlomo, the son of Yitzchak. So he got his son because of the merit of him throwing away the gem to not have it be used in an idol. There's another powerful lesson here in the Parsha related to the women. The kiyar, the wash basin, was made out of copper. Who donated the copper? The women. What did they donate the copper for? Where did they get copper from? They used that as mirrors to make themselves look pretty for their husbands. And Moshe was like, I don't know, it sounds a little vain. Not such a great idea. And Hashem said, no. I want those mirrors used by the women. Why? Because why were the women using the copper mirrors for their husbands? In Egypt, things looked terrible. It looked like We're never going to get out. We're in servitude. And what did the women do? They made themselves look pretty and used the mirrors to beautify themselves, to entice their husbands to be intimate with them, to have children. So they had the concept of hope. We may not get out of Egypt, but our children, if not our children, our children's children, if not our children, our children's children will get out. So we must procreate and have more kids. It was done for the sake of heaven. And second of all, it was not for vanity. It was to make themselves look beautiful for their husbands. And that's those two ideas, the concept of hope and the concept of making oneself beautiful, not so that everyone on the street should think you're gorgeous, but that your husbands should think you're beautiful. Those are two very beautiful, beautiful ideas. And Hashem says, I want that incorporated into the Mishkan. And I want those mirrors as to be part of the Kiyar. And Hashem overruled Moshe and taught us this very powerful and important lesson. The Nesiim, the princes, made a mistake. The Nesiim, the princes, said that they're going, we're going to find that you'll tell me if it's a mistake, actually. We'll give whatever the rest of the people don't give. Now, I want you to know, I would be very happy if someone said to me, or Czapnik, whatever you need to meet the budget at the end of the month, I will replace. Be very happy with that. But the Nesiim did that, and it didn't work out. Why? Because everybody gave enough. They ended up not having what to give. They eventually, later on, gave other things, but the wagons, whatever, and the sacrifices to inaugurate it. But so what was wrong with their idea? Like I said, I'd be very happy if someone said, I'll help pay the budget for the month, whatever's missing. It doesn't come in from donations. But they shouldn't have waited. You have an opportunity to do a mitzvah, don't wait, do it. Do it. So, a little bit about Pekudei. Pekudei is where there's an accounting. Moshe is giving an accounting of all the money that came in. Why? And we talked about this idea before, V'yisim Nikiyim. Make sure to do good things that you're beyond the shadow of the doubt. Nobody is doubting what you're doing, beyond reproach. Don't just say, oh, God knows the truth. It's good, God knows the truth, but you have to do things that people shouldn't think that. And that's interesting. People are picky about what money they give to charity, but they'll spend, whatever we want on anything else. I have to get the latest new plasma TV. You know what I'm saying? Like that, people don't care about so much. But when it comes to charity, they get more picky. So on one hand, we have to be meticulous about trying to present our best foot forward, and people shouldn't assume that we don't want to do anything to make people assume that we're not living up to the standards. On the other hand, we should judge people favorably. One of my favorite stories is about this lady who's at an airport, and this Orthodox man is sitting next to her, and she has a box of cookies, and she's eating from the box of cookies, and he's eating from the box of cookies. And she doesn't say anything, but she's a little surprised. He didn't ask her, and he's taking, and he took the last cookie too. All right, she's a little surprised, but she didn't say anything. She gets on the plane and realized she had the same box of cookies. She was eating from his box. She still had her whole box. And she was eating from his box, and she was assuming that he was. So we have to judge people favorably.
So if somebody has a pattern of doing stuff that's maybe not so good,
Right?
we still should judge them favorably.
That's an excellent question. It depends on what it is, and it depends on who it is. In other words, it could be It could be the person is a wicked person, and then you don't have to always judge them favorably. But so it depends. In other words, we'll be simplistic about it. There are three categories: people who are generally do try to do the right thing, people you don't know, and people who generally do the wrong thing. So the people who you should definitely judge favorably. People you don't know, you should also judge favorably. You don't know them, so why should you assume the bad? But people who are, a problem, like the guy walks into the store and every time comes out without paying, you can assume that he's going to shoplift his favorite candy again. You know what I'm saying? So that's an important idea. It's also an important life lesson. The concept of having two measuring sticks, one for ourselves and one for others. For ourselves, we should be strict on how we judge ourselves, and work on trying to become the best that we can. For somebody else, be lenient for others. Yes.
Has the parent of not doing the right thing. Is it incumbent upon us to bring them to justice, or we just let Hashem deal with it?
Okay, another good question. Well, it depends. Do we have the power to bring them to justice? Sometimes it's not our business, and let bygones be bygones. Let them do what they're doing. But maybe talking to them, telling them it's the wrong thing to do, trying to protect people from being harmed by that person, that would be a positive.
So you should probably talk to the person first.
Yes, that would definitely be a good idea. And try to find a way to show that you care about them and that in their best interest, it's not a good idea to do this. So in the beginning of Pekudei, it says, Eila Pekudei HaMishkan, Mishkan HaEdus. These are the reckonings of the tabernacle of testimony, which were reckoned at Moses' bidding. So why does it say word Mishkan twice? And our sages learn out something powerful about it. A mashkin is, I forgot the English word for it. If I loan you money and I want a guarantee, I'll take your collateral. Thank you. So mashkin is collateral. So the Mishkan is collateral for us. What I mean by the Mishkan is collateral. It's collateral in the sense that if we behave, we get to keep it. If we don't, and that's what the issues with the temples. We lost the temples twice because we didn't live up to what we were supposed to do. What is repeated in this parsha and Parshas Pekudei again and again and again? The words Kasha Tziva Hashem es Moshe, as Moshe commanded, as God commanded Moshe. It talks about the construction of the tabernacle, and it keeps on repeating as God commanded Moshe. As a matter of fact, it's repeated 18 times. Shut the ear. Why is it repeated so many times? Because, wait a second, the ark had golden figurines on them. How's that different than the golden calf? The relationship was different. A, B, one was commanded by God and one was not. And God said, you want a physical manifestation of spirituality? I'll give it to you, but you're going to do it my way. And that's why 18 times, where's the number 18 come in? Other times. I need the Jeopardy music. Someone got to get me a recording of it. Yeah. Shemona Esrei, the 18 blessings of the silent devotion. Now due to inflation, now 19, but it was originally 18. It's still called Shemona Esrei, right? So the 18 blessings, the idea to teach us this connection to Hashem, that it has to be not on our own, it has to be what Hashem commanded. And that's the first reason why we do the mitzvah. We do the mitzvah, the reason for the mitzvah, first reason, and the last reason, because Hashem said. Now we want to learn more and try to understand, fine.
Were the tablets put in the ark so people wouldn't worship the tablets?
No, that wasn't the issue. But I have to read you this article, if you like a copy of it. It's from Rabbi Emanuel Feldman, who the title of the article, it'll take a moment, but it's worth listening to it because he's exceptionally respectful to Reform and Conservative movement, but he explains the flaw of it. And the title is Save Me from the Saviors. It's difficult enough to have to leave Israel for the U.S. during Hanukkah, but the letdown of exile descended upon me quickly while I'm still on the plane. I opened the magazine and the ad hit me right between the eyes. Celebrate the warmth and wonder of both Hanukkah and Xmas, the perfect way for interfaith families to celebrate both holidays. The Hanukkah tree topper. I'll repeat that because some of you aren't as shocked as I am whenever I read it. The Hanukkah tree topper, a great gift for Hanukkah or Xmas traditions. A must-have for interfaith marriages, yours for only $19.99. The tree topper is especially designed Magen David that fits perfectly on top of an Xmas tree. Okay, help! Once upon a time, an intermarriage was an embarrassment to a Jewish family, but today, with an intermarriage rate in the US of over 50% and in Europe over 70%, and by the way, this was written in 2012, and the statistics have only gotten worse. It has become a quite acceptable and normal. Although Hanukkah celebrates the miraculous victory over Hellenism that wanted to obliterate all signs of Jewish distinctiveness, this ad demonstrates that the battle is still raging and the focus of obliteration are only getting stronger. How did it happen that 2,000 years after the miracle of Hanukkah was still losing millions of Jews to the scourge of assimilation? That's what happened when misguided Jewish leaders tried to, quote, save Judaism for future generations. Yet what was inevitable would all end with the must-have Hanukkah tree topper for $19.99. Here's the path to the race to the bottom. In order to bring people back to the synagogue, certain restrictive disciplines of Torah were relaxed or eliminated. Prayers were changed from Hebrew to English. Kashrus restrictions were eased. Mechitza, the separation between men and women, were dropped. Modesty standards were eliminated. Driving to shul was permitted. These steps were not deliberate attempts to destroy Torah, but to save it. It was a very powerful insight. The theory was that unless such emergency measures were adopted, Judaism was doomed. Yet once certain barriers were broken, it became quite easy to break down others. And soon enough, davening prayer was abbreviated, the siddur was abridged, conversion procedures were abandoned. But even with the improvements, their Judaism was failing. It was clear that more resuscitation was needed. For the higher purpose of saving Judaism, it seemed necessary to ordain women as rabbis, and soon it was discovered that which the Torah clearly calls an abomination, meaning homosexual marriages, and toeva was actually not forbidden at all, and then it becomes easier for rabbis to officiate same-gender marriages. All this not because there was any evil desire to destroy Judaism, but a desire to save it. But these efforts did nothing to improve the perilous state of their Judaism. The numbers of dwindling, lost to assimilation. So in order to preserve Judaism, they permitted rabbis to officiate intermarriages, and they accepted intermarried couples without even a pretense of minimal conversion to Jewish practice. And so it developed that their former Judaism in our time has been denuded of its uniqueness and has become indistinguishable from the majority of religion. The Hanukkah tree top is the perfect symbol of Judaism that was saved by destroying it. It's worthy companion to the Hanukkah bush and the chubby gift-giving Hanukkah man. The operation was a success, but the patient died. I remember a recent conversation with a prominent American conservative rabbi. He had been raised as an Orthodox Jew, had been a brilliant yeshiva student, was scholarly and still personally observant. But decades early in the 1950s, he had led his prominent Orthodox congregation into the conservative camp because he believed that Torah would not survive in America and that he would save whatever remnants he could. When we spoke, he had long since realized his fatal error. He brought to mind the advice of my late father, a rabbi in Baltimore for 40 years, gave me as I began my rabbinate in Atlanta. Do not try to save Judaism. Simply do your job as a rabbi every day, teach your flock and guide them gradually into Torah observance and learning, and let God worry about the future of Judaism. In other words, God is not asking to save Torah, but to live Torah, to teach Torah, and to do Torah, and to leave the saving to Him. Although outnumbered decades ago, the Orthodox today embody the Rabbi B'Yad Matam, the many in the hands of the little, having kept alive the spirit of the Maccabees who fought for the integrity of the Torah. The Orthodox went about establishing schools of Jewish learning, day schools, yeshivas, kolim, and intensified Jewish Torah study, while everyone else is busy trying to save Judaism by abandoning it. Travel is broadening, but it can also be disheartening. I have a strong desire to return to my cocoon in Jerusalem, where no one is trying to save Judaism by fixing it. They're too busy living it. Again, a very powerful line. And what?
It speaks a lot to like what I'm going through.
Yeah. And again, like I said, he's being very respectful. He's not saying that they're out there to destroy Judaism. I mean, Pesach is coming up, and just a sad, amusing side note. A woman once asked an Orthodox man, is it okay for a woman rabbi to be a rabbi? And he said, well, a woman rabbi, and we can discuss why another time, but he said it is as appropriate as an orange on the Seder plate. So guess what? Many non-Orthodox people put an orange on the Seder plate now. Why? Because he said that rabbi made a joke about women rabbis. So what about the sanctity of the Seder plate? It's not there for an orange. There's a reason. Everything on the Seder plate has a reason. God willing, we'll get to it when we get close to the Passover. But the idea here is this idea of that's why doing it because God said, not because it's our logic. And there's nothing wrong with finding out, learning more to find out the reasons. That's great. Why not? Yes, Lady.
Along the lines of, how flexible or not we should be in order to encourage people to adhere to Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
Is it better to allow a conversion leading to marriage where ultimately the lifestyle will be secular anyway, or will look very secular? Or is it better to not allow that conversion at all?
Well, you're asking a question that really let me put it to you in a different context. Okay, a non-religious couple wants to convert a baby. They want to adopt a baby. So first of all, how does adoption for a baby work? The baby's not big enough to be able to make the decision. So there is a concept called Zachem La'adam Shalei B'fanav. I can do something good for you. Let me give you an example. Let's say I find an umbrella on the street that says, I don't want this umbrella, it's free, anyone can take it. And I said, you know what? This matches Letty's Shabbos dress, or I'm going to pick it up, not for me, for you. Can I acquire that umbrella for you? What do you think?
On Shabbos?
No, not on Shabbos.
Oh,
No, it matches a nice outfit Letty has. Can I acquire the for you? And the answer is yes. I can acquire something for you if it's for your benefit. Right? Okay. I like his suit. I said, this is perfect for Dell's suit. Boom, it's yours. So it's not mine anymore. I acquired it for you. I can't. So you can convert somebody to Judaism as a child. Yes, when they become bar mitzvah, they have to affirm it, but that's a side issue for a moment. But if it's to their benefit, if they're going to be raised in a house that isn't kosher and they isn't keeping Shabbos, then I'm not doing a benefit for them. Does anyone understand what I just said?
Yeah.
So let me bring it full circle. So when I was a little boy, there was a guy who was dating a non-Jewish girl, which at the time was not that common. And his parents were very upset, and they wanted her to convert. So she went through a form conversion. And okay. And after learning a little bit, she said, no, it's not enough. So she went for a conservative conversion. And after a while, that wasn't enough. And she went through an Orthodox conversion. And finally, she finished Orthodox conversion. The guy said, okay, can we get married? She said, I'm not interested in it. You want to marry a non-Jew? And he dropped her, and she dropped him. And the family was like, what? Yes. And Baruch Hashem, she married a nice Orthodox guy. Converting somebody so that it was a very, very funny and sad story. I had a guy bring me his girlfriend. I should add, a very, very pregnant girlfriend. Yeah, I'd like to convert. My girlfriend wants to convert. I said, okay, that's a process. It's a 1.5 year, 2 year, process. So no. You mean my baby's not going to be Jewish? I said, you'll pardon the French. I didn't make your girlfriend pregnant. You did. It's not going to be on your schedule. It's going to be on the schedule if it's a sincere conversion. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing? And he was all frustrated, and she got it. She understood. She said, he's right. It's not a joke. It's not, I'll pay the fee. It's not about paying the fee. It's not about money. It's about doing what you need to do to go ahead. Okay.
Someone might go through Orthodox conversion, but afterwards the lifestyle doesn't be Orthodox. And so what's the logic that goes into allowing for that flexibility?
Well, there isn't a logic. In other words, look, there are Orthodox people who unfortunately leave Orthodoxy. They're still Jewish. And if the person, when they converted, was sincere about their Judaism, and unfortunately, for whatever reason decided to leave, that doesn't negate their conversion, assuming it was. But I mean, the RCC, when they're dealing with somebody who's in a relationship, will require the person who's in the relationship to be part of the process, because if that person's not growing, then the other person's not growing.
I'm just trying to think of flexibility, trying to find accommodations for people to make it easier for them to adhere to Judaism.
I know, but we can't make accommodations for people if in the end the goal is not to keep Judaism. Yeah. I don't know what they're thinking, because it doesn't make sense to me. I had a woman many years ago. She was a very sweet non-Jewish woman who desperately wanted to convert, and her husband was adamant that he's not going to change. He's not interested. And the RCC told her, look, we're really, really sorry. Your sincerity, we're not doubting. But if he's not going to go along with the program, and you're not going to have Shabbos in your house, and you're not going to have kashrus in your house, and you're not going to keep the rules of family purity, how can we give you that stand?
But I think it's like their mentality. But it's more confusing in supposedly an Orthodox community.
Well, again, not every Orthodox conversion is accepted. So that's the discussion. Not everyone's is accepted. That's why I recommend the RCC for that. Okay.
My school that he was raised Orthodox, but his wife is Gentile, and so he convinced her to convert, wanting to be Orthodox. She's like, no, I'll be conservative. And they converted, but now we never see them at shul because she doesn't like to go to shul. And so that kind of
yeah, look, it's sad. What are you going to do? It's you're dealing with people who are fickle, and again, part of that has to be is what is the intent of the people, and if if the intent is sincere, so then you work with people and try to help them. If they're not sincere, then it's a problem.
your question about you asking, should the Orthodox rabbi want better?
Yeah, I'm thinking if we should try to protect Torah and mitzvot as much as possible, right? That's why we wouldn't allow someone to drive to shul. It's preferable that
Right.
Shabbos at home and do the shul. So then why do we allow for so much flexibility?
I don't think a good conversion program won't. That's all I could say. a good conversion prone wall. It's hard. It's very hard. Okay, let's wrap it up. A few things. Hashem told Moshe set up the Mishkan, and he says, "I can't do it." Hashem says, "You do yours, and I'll help out." And that's an important lesson for all of us. We just got to try. And I'll give you a beautiful example of this. There was a rabbi named Rabbi Meir Schuster, an unbelievable person who stood by the Western Wall and would go over to people, strangers, and say, "Hey, you have a place for Shabbos, or do you want to go to a class?" And he was instrumental in bringing hundreds, if not thousands, of Jews back to Judaism by this. And his personality was shy and timid. It was not his personality. It was not like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like he was not a gregarious kind of guy and pat on the back. And I met him, and but he felt it was so important to do, and he had special divine providence to help him, that he just would invite people for a class or for a meal and set them up, and it was an amazing thing. I'm sorry? He passed away just a few years ago, but he literally lived by the coastal, so much to try to get people to come. And like 20, 30 years he was doing the work. It was amazing.
Rabbi Czapnik.
Yes.
What you just said, it reminds me of an example of like in Lubavitch, how they make all these boys on Friday go and do shlichus, and they try to get them
People
to
put on tefillin, yeah.
Right. Put on
Right.
tefillin, they give out candles for Shabbos. And not every boy is going to have that personality to go up to anybody on the street and ask, "Are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? Would you like to do this? Would you like to do that?"
Right.
And so how is it that this campaign has gone on for decades and is just getting larger and larger? And it's because the mission behind it is to recognize that like all Jews are connected. And even if I put on tefillin today, which obviously I didn't because I'm a woman, but like even though I may have done the mitzvah for myself, the actual mitzvah is not complete until all the Jews have done it.
Okay.
And like having
Well
that
said.
in mind is what helped a lot of those kids and continues to help those kids, go out of their comfort zone and do these things that maybe only an extrovert would do. So anyway.
Yeah, well said. There's a beautiful saying, and I'm going to read it to you. It's on the bottom page 537. And Moses blessed the Jewish people. What did he say? What do you say when you finish the Mishkan? It says, may it be God's will that the Shekhinah, the divine presence, rest upon your handiwork. And may your presence of my Lord, our God, be upon us. Our handbook may he establish for us. Our handbook may he establish. So this is from the psalm that Moshe composed. The idea of doing work and wanting God's presence to be on it is a beautiful, beautiful idea. Because a person can have the best idea in the world, but if God's presence isn't resting on it, it's not going to work. So again, there's more to talk about. We're going to stop here, but at the very end of the Parsha, take a look on the bottom of page 540 and 541. When we read the last verse, everyone in the synagogue is going to stand up and we're going to say, Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazak. Be strong, and may we be strengthened so that we complete more Torah works. Whenever we finish one of the 5 books, that's what we say. All right. We're going to stop here. Any questions, comments, thoughts? And by the way, I want to read you, in my notes, I put a mitzvah note. Does anyone know what a mitzvah note is? A mitzvah note is what my kids in class, 5-year-olds, bring if they do something well. It could be they went to sleep on time, they got into pajamas when the mother asked them the first time. So this is a mitzvah note that I have from several years ago, but it's very beautiful. So here was one. Tzvi was so good over Shabbos. His sister was sick and he was quiet and helped her, and she needed, and he also helped clean up the Shabbos table. So that's a very nice mitzvah note. Dear Rabbi, Tzvi's afikomen present arrived in the mail on Shabbos. he was so excited that it came and wanted to open it so badly, or at least just to bring it into the house so that the rain wouldn't damage the box. But he didn't touch it because he knew it was muksa. He couldn't move it on Shabbos to touch a box that came in the mail on Shabbos, and he controlled himself, and we're so proud of him. Imagine that's a 5-6-year-old boy having that strength. That's an amazing thing. It's a beautiful mitzvah, and that's why I copied and put it into my notes. All right, may we have the strength to do the right thing and be Hashem's blessing on our hands for the things that we do. Any questions, comments, thoughts? Questions, comments, thoughts?
Just amen. And you covered a lot in one session. So thank
We
you.
try. Thank you, Connie. How was your Purim, Connie?
Very nice. Very, very
Yeah.
nice. I was at my aunt and uncle. Yeah, it was really, really nice.
Did you start the new job?
Not yet. I mean, the application is done and they're like processing all the stuff. So
Okay. All right.
it's in the midst.
Dem should help. The right things should work out. See if you need anything in the interim, let me know.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you. I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm sorry? Yes. It's not in the pasuk, but we just know what it is from Tehillim. 5.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Take it. Thank you. Page. It's from Tehillim, Tzaddik 17. It's in Tehillim. No, but that's what he said. You're welcome. Anybody else? Thoughts, questions? You're welcome, Yehuda. Take care. All the best. Take care, Diane. Take care, David, Shmuel.
Thank you,
Bracha.
Rabbi Czapnik.
Have a good
Welcome.
week.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
lady. All the best. Feel good.
Have a good week.
You too. All the best, everybody.